Welcome to the Casual Shooters Podcast, your premier podcast for the casual shooter. I am your host, David Riddle. My guest tonight is a revolver shooter. In the past, in 2025, let's start there, you had the IPSC Handgun World Shoot in South Africa. There were 4 Americans who were on the gold-winning team. In the past, I've had 2 of those members on as guests. Today, I'm having a third. The third team member whose score counted and also won a gold medal is here with me tonight. So we are going to go deep into the revolver world. If you would, join me in welcoming to the show, Mr. Alex Bakken. How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing all right, sir. Sadly, I have to correct you on one thing.
Pronunciation.
I know. I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but my score did not count for the team.
Oh, it did not?
Yes, which actually is funny. Depending on which version of scores you looked at, they flipped. Jay and I had, I think, a 1 match point difference. Out of 560 rounds over 5 days, it was 1 match point, and Jay Slater is your third score.
You are absolutely correct. And now that I think about that, you are absolutely right. He was the third member.
Yeah.
So thank you for correcting me. I appreciate that. Sorry about that, Jay.
That's a funny story if we get there. So.
Well, we're definitely going to be getting there because I know that there was an issue on day 1, so we'll definitely be getting there. If you would, take a quick moment and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Alex Bakken. I've been shooting pretty much my whole life. I think I probably had my first handgun, when I was like 5. I think my dad started me off on a Ruger single 6. We shot trap, we shot skeet, we hunted. I shot a lot of birds growing up, whether clay or otherwise. And through, this, that, the other, over the years, I got interested in competitive shooting, and of all things, I saw Jerry Mitchellek videos. I mean, a lot of people probably have a similar story. They saw some, really talented, above and beyond shooter, and they're like, man, that looks cool. And I saw Jerry doing stuff with a revolver that you're like, how in the heck is that possible? And so I decided I wanted to learn how to shoot revolver. And as they say, the rest is history. So now you're also talking to your current ICORE President, and we'll probably talk about ICORE a little bit. And, I'm a match director, I'm a competitor, a perpetual volunteer, one might say. And I'm also decent at shooting.
That's a lot of work, too, all of that stuff. So we're definitely going to be going there. I've got some of that stuff written down. But what I like to do first is start off with some icebreaker questions to kind of get the hard drive spinning and make the rest of the questions easier. So, with as much shooting as you have done, if there was one shooting skill you could have learned right at the very beginning, instantaneously, like Neo in the Matrix, what skill would that be?
Some people call it visual patience. Some people call it shot calling. I would say that knowing, because I've done a ton of testing myself where just shamelessly ripping shots at a 3-yard target or something, and I shoot barely faster drawing my gun and emptying it and maybe hitting the target barely faster than when I'm coring a hole in the A zone where it's actually perfed A. I mean, we're talking for 8 rounds maybe a 10th or 0.15 seconds difference. So that because it's all right here. You have to convince your brain that you should spend an extra 2, 3, 400ths of a second to get an alpha instead of a no shoot mic or something like that. So that I wish if I could go and steal that in 2012 or 2011 Alex's brain, I think I would probably would have marched up the food chain a little faster in terms of skill.
That's interesting. So now you've done a lot more shooting pistol than I have, and obviously achieved a much higher level. But I would consider shot calling and visual patience 2 different things, but you kind of put them together there. So you think they go hand in hand?
Yeah, I would say yes, because like, if you do your classic, your bill drill, draw and just like shamelessly dump rounds at a target, the visual patience is the part of, am I waiting long enough to actually break the shot when I'm hitting my scoring zone that I intend to hit? The
Right.
shot calling is knowing that it went there. And like, the 90s, synergy was a big term. I feel like if you have shot calling and you have visual patience and you put them together, it's like that mind blowing, meme that people do.
That
It's,
synergistic effect.
yes,
Yeah.
1 + 1 equals more than two in that example. I mean,
Okay.
and like when I've seen, some of the best shooters in the world, I've been very fortunate to squad and shoot with like world and national champions. Those folks watching them shoot, they're doing that, right? And that's like the infinitesimally more difficult last couple percent. If you look at like your nationals percentages, for example.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know, that'd be my first one. I don't know, there's others I'm sure, but that's definitely
But that's the one for you.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think like everybody is like the last guest I had on, he said trigger control.
Okay.
So there's always something a little bit different for each person. So, okay. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh, like processing things faster than they occur. I forget what that one's called, but it's like you can intercept a basketball in real time, but it seems like it's happening 10 times faster. That sort of come in and correct, but in real life nobody saw you do it. That's the kind of thing I would want to be able to do.
Oh, wow. That's a first.
I don't know what that's called, but there's like some superhero or something I've seen in the past where like time stops, they can pivot, and then time continues. So from the reference frame of the observer, they just saw somebody moving, but that individual kind of had like sub real life control on their motions and movements.
Right? Like they're able to slow time, but yet
Yeah.
move in real speed.
I mean, because what we're doing, if you look, if you like think of competitive shooting, my answer is more focused towards competitive shooting, for example. That is I start shooting immediately when I get to the position or I see a target and I'm backing out of it as soon as I'm done shooting. It's like having those infinitesimal advantages of, I need to move right now.
Yeah. I wonder how much time you could actually gain by being able to do that. That would be crazy.
That is a handsome question, my man.
Yeah. Maybe I should ask Sheldon Cooper.
Well, Christian Seiler probably, he's probably your best
Yeah.
face.
Yeah, he
So,
might know, or Eric, one of the two. They might know. Oh, okay. What is a food you'll never get tired of?
oh, steak, hands down.
I knew it based on your social media.
Yeah, yeah. I think I ate steak almost every day last year. In some
Wow.
shape or like either I was cooking with leftover, rendered beef fat, or eating leftover steak or making one. I That's a whole story in itself, but I kind of logicked my way into, if you buy a decent cut of beef at the right price, you can have like a nice 10 or 12 ounce steak for cheaper than you can buy any fast food meal. So I convinced
Yes.
myself I was better off just having good food and making it myself and not feeling bad about it. So I think I probably ate strip steak every day for like a month last year. So
Yeah. I
buy it on
just,
sale.
was it about 4 weeks ago? Yeah, it was the end of March. I bought a ribeye roast, the whole thing at Costco, trimmed it, sliced it into the size of steaks that I like. I got 14 steaks out of it, and I still have a few more to go
Oh, absolutely.
with
Yeah,
eating a lot of steak.
I do that too. I buy like they'll have around holidays, Christmas. They have full strips like uncut with a fat cap on them. So
Yep.
I'll buy those and I'll trim off the fat cap, render it down for cooking, slice it into
Yep.
probably 12-ounce steaks usually. It's not a bad way to live, my man.
No, not at all. Now, do you do carnivore or keto or something, or you just enjoy steak?
I have never been much for sweets compared to savory food. And so if I'm just cooking food and just eating something I want to eat, it's probably some sort of fresh vegetable and some sort of like grilled smoked meat. That's kind of my go-to. And if you ever come out and shoot, actually, I think the picture you have above me is possibly from the WRC. If you ever come out to WRC, there's a lot of meat at the campfire. We know how to do that big, so.
You guys do a campfire at the match?
Yeah, I've actually got a travel trailer. I'm staying out on the range for the whole week when I'm out there this year, and it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a great time, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have a lot. I didn't realize you were the president. I was on the ICORE page earlier today. So I have some questions about that anyway. But now, knowing that you're the president and all this other, that's probably going to be an hour-long conversation in itself.
Well, you told me this could go a while, so I blocked the rest of the night off. So you've got me as long as you want me.
I've had 4 people go 4 hours, Alex.
Is that a challenge? I don't know.
Yeah, one of them was in Moscow, so.
Awesome.
And they were all great conversations, so not a bad one in the lot.
Beautiful.
Okay. If you could have dinner with one person from any period of history, no family members of any kind or, significant others, who would it be?
Probably go Winston Churchill.
That's an interesting one. Why him?
There's just a lot about that man and pivotal points in history where we'd all be speaking German otherwise. I feel like that would be an interesting man to have a long dinner over some fine Scotch whiskey.
I think there's a lot. Yeah, that would definitely be. I've read a few books about stuff around there, and a lot of the secret meetings between FDR, him, Stalin during World War II, trying to meet in different places around the world to plan stuff. That definitely would be an interesting conversation for sure.
Oh yeah.
If money were no object, what would you be doing right now?
It's a funny question. I would be doing the same thing I'm doing right now. I actually made like a fundamental life choice to not seek a paycheck. I distinctly remember when I took this job, I said, okay, this is about the least I want to make coming out of school. I took quite a bit off of that, and then I had the conversation. I remember sitting in my car, outside. I just got out of class, and I was essentially like negotiating this job. And I took a pretty hearty chunk off the top, and our now CEO was like, "Ooh, Alex, I don't know if I can pay you that much." And so I'm thinking, okay, this will be interesting. But we figured something out, and I'm still at the same company 8.5 years later. So it was more about opportunity, experience, and what we were doing rather than the paycheck. So
I feel like you would be happier as an employee for those reasons than taking the paycheck.
Yes. I have plenty of family members that took the other pill. And maybe they buy dinner and I don't even think about it. But I'm very happy with my life choices. Even though I could have made a lot more money doing other things, I'm very happy I'm doing what I'm doing.
That's the part that matters.
Yeah.
All right. Well, those were all the hard questions. Now it's just an easy conversation from here on out. You said you grew up around guns, and it sounds like you said it was a single shot. I assume it was a rifle that you started on.
Ruger single 6, the 22 6-shot single action only revolvers. Are you familiar with that?
I am not.
Actually, I have it in the gun safe. I should have grabbed it. I have a bunch of stuff handy in case you want to talk, but I didn't think you'd ask that question. So, yeah, my dad was big into guns. He had quite a collection. He had everything from, competition guns, skeet, trap, big game hunting to, I don't know, like cool tactical weapons you would have seen in 80s movies. He had like everything. But when we were kids, he mostly had us focus on like 22 handguns, 22 rifles. We shot, some centerfire rifle, and we eventually started shooting a lot of shotgun because we got into clay targets, and then we hunted quite a bit for birds.
What state did you grow up in?
That's a good question. I was born outside of Pittsburgh, and I lived there for I think the first 6 or so years, and then we moved to South Jersey for about 3 years, and then I moved to Michigan for about 8 years, and that would be my kind of birth through graduating high school. And so we lived, you know, small suburb outside of a big city to like middle of nowhere, one stop sign town to reasonably small, like near the lake beach area. And now I live in Lansing, Michigan, which is maybe 500,000 people in the metro area. So it's like I've lived a couple different places. And then throughout that experience, my parents also, for quite a few years, they lived in like downtown London on the river downtown. So I've had an experience from like a lot of different, types of places in terms of highly populated to highly unpopulated, highly gun friendly to not at all gun friendly.
Yeah, I was going to say New Jersey. I wonder how that curbed the whole shooting thing.
That would. I think you had to register all your pistols there, and like the sheriff had to come to your house. It was like a whole thing. That'd be a good question for some of my other Revo buddies that either live in Jersey or live right next to Jersey. Because I'm always wondering how they fly in and out of the airports and how they deal with all that. And I do know that if you mess up and you get the wrong cop and they're not in the right mood, you will get arrested. So you better follow the rules and don't be an idiot, don't be smart, don't be cute. If you get pulled over, be polite, be professional.
Right.
Don't have an attitude with New Jersey state cops. They don't like that.
Yeah, I get that. I feel like if there's one style of firearm, a revolver would be the one to have that would be the least worrisome of the group. You know what I mean? In the non-gun friendly states.
It's actually funny you say that because I think whether it's USPSA or like ICORE, we see a lot of top tier revolver shooters. We have seen quite a few kind of come up in areas where capacity is limited or they're not super gun friendly. So you get somebody that wants to shoot competitively and they want to, like they're willing to put the work and put the time in, but they're thinking, I don't want to shoot open 10,
Right.
But I could shoot single stack. I could shoot revolver. I could shoot maybe L10. So I've seen quite a few good shooters that came out of like the Northeast, whereas there's a couple pockets that aren't super gun friendly for high cap. Some of the best Revo shooters I've ever met are actually from that area, like PA, Jersey, Massachusetts, up in that zone.
Right. Yeah, where they don't give you a whole lot of options. So
no.
Hopefully that'll change. I know the DOJ is looking to. I think they have already filed suit against Denver over the AR-15 thing. So hopefully, my point is just that hopefully that expands a little more and they go after more anti-gun laws and opens it up for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. That would. Nobody likes seeing that, and especially like through my ICORE volunteer. We talk to the Canadians a lot, and dude, they have a heck of a time up there. And the Australians, I mean, yeah, we could spend the whole time just talking about that, but folks can read the news; they know how bad that is.
Exactly. So, you graduate high school. Well, before we get there, let me ask you this: did you shoot any competition before you actually got out of high school?
I don't think so. I don't think I shot any sort of formal competition of any kind until I was in grad school.
Okay. And how did you find it?
It was the, watch a YouTube video or, saw something in a magazine. I think it truly was. I saw some videos of Jerry Michalek just like laying it down with a revolver. His famous 299, 6 reload 6, something like that. And I thought to myself, that's pretty cool. So I was going to Purdue at the time in central Indiana, and there's a range down there called Wildcat Valley that it's a fabulous facility. And when I was going to school, it was really nice, and they've significantly improved it since then. It's like truly a hidden treasure in that area. And so I went out, and I think the first time, I can't remember if I shot the first time I went out or I just went out to watch, but They had IDPA, USPSA, Steel Challenge, ICORE, High Power, Silhouette, Trap, Skeet. Like they had all kinds of stuff. And I was a little overwhelmed actually because it's like, well, what do I do? And IDPA, for whatever reason, they seem to advertise a lot better to the general public than several of the other sports. So I believe the first match I ever shot was an IDPA match, and being an idiot and not knowing any better, I showed up with an aluminum frame, compact alloy, CZ with a deep concealment holster. I brought an actual carry rig, right? And then I showed up, and there's these guys with like outside waistband. They got a couple pound 1911 on their hip, and I'm thinking to myself, I thought this was like a defensive pistol. I didn't get it right. So I showed up. I realized quickly that wasn't competitive gear, and after I shot that for a little bit, I ordered actually I still have it. It's a CZ 75 Light. It's not a full underlug. But I converted it to single action only, and it's got the adjustable rear target sight. So that, if you roll the clock back 13 years or 14 years, that was an ideal gun for, I think it was ESP at the time. Because it made weight, it had plenty of capacity, it's got a super crisp single action trigger, easy to run. And I guess the rest is history from there. I didn't have a revolver at that time. And so I just brought what I had. And then I met a guy who he used to show up every match on a Harley, and all of his kit was on the back. And he's a super chill dude. And he would pull out his gear. He shot a 4-inch 625 with moon clips. And IDPA is kind of low round count. So he just had this little box that he had like the whole kit. Everything was just right. And he pulled out all his moon clips. He shot the match, put them all back. He never lost a single piece of brass. And I was like, that guy might be onto something. I chatted with him a little bit, and in the whole Jerry Mitchellek thing, I was thinking to myself, I think that's the same gun that I saw Jerry shooting. And so I started talking to this guy. One thing led to another. Eventually, I ended up buying one, and the rest is history, as they say. So
you started off shooting semi-auto and switched right over to revolver.
Yeah, and it's funny, like I was in grad school at the time, and it's not like I had a surplus of cash. So I actually did a detour. I started in IDPA, and if memory serves me correctly, I shot cowboy action most of the next year because I was, I had to get a gun, I had to get gear, and, I already had the stuff for cowboy. I've always loved single action revolvers. It's funny, I shoot a ton of double action, and that's probably what most people associate me with. But my true passion in life, the thing that you look at and you're like, I don't care how much that is, I want that. Those are almost always single action, custom, very non-standard custom single action revolvers. Again, being like young and in college, I wanted to try different models, and so I was the idiot who showed up and I had a 38 caliber rifle, a 12 gauge shotgun, a 45 pistol on one hip, and a 44 pistol on the other hip. Because I didn't have money to just like go buy pairs of things to try them. And dude, they used to make so much fun of me. And I was one of the only, and I'm like a young college kid. I was coming out shooting like, 44 special in one gun, 45 ACP in another. They just looked at me like I was an idiot. But it made sense to me at the time. But so I did.
And you had fun.
I had a lot of fun, and I got smoked by some dudes in their 60s and 70s and beyond. It's in cowboy, if you can shoot fast, you don't have to move very fast. And I learned a lot of really good lessons from some of the folks that have been doing it a while, because I would think, oh, I'm young and I can do this, and some dude in like his early 70s would just blow me out of the water and just lay it down with his rifle, lay it down with his pistol, take about 2 paces, and then lay it down with his shotgun. And so I became friends with those guys. And I was like, hey, I want you to teach me how to do that. And so they did. And then, I started shooting ICORE, Steel Challenge, USPSA. I mean, they got me into everything. And before I knew it, I was the match director at that club for both ICORE and Steel Challenge for a while, until I moved up here, actually. So, yeah.
Cowboy action, is that where they had the guns on the tables and you basically move from table to table?
Yeah, they do it a couple different ways. So I've never shot multi-gun or 2-gun. I've only shot 4-gun, right? Cowboy, because you got 2 pistols, a rifle, and a shotgun.
Right.
So a lot of the stuff is based on how are you safely picking up a gun if it's loaded or not, and how are you putting a gun down safely if it's loaded or not. And so, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of times the shotgun, they call it a horse. It looks like a little kid's toy horse, but it's essentially a gun holder. And so, a lot of times you'll start with like a shotgun, action open. You pick it up, you load it, you shoot everything, and they make sure you have enough targets to engage that you're emptying the gun and you're setting down an empty gun. Same thing with your rifle. Like most of those rifles will hold, like I think 10 rounds is a pretty safe number. And so they'll make sure you engage enough targets that you fire all your rounds. And in Cowboy, if I'm not mistaken, it was at that time a time plus match. So if you missed, it's not like you're going to pull out extra ammo and reload that rifle and keep shooting. That's just not fast. So one of the guys told me real quick, you can't outshoot a miss. And he was right. You're much better going just a little. It's kind of what we talked about before, shot calling and visual patience.
Yep.
Because some of those old guys would just be like, "Brah," they would lay it down, but they were 100% sure they were hitting their target. And when they put that gun down, it was empty, and there was no question if they had to reload it. So a lot of time that's how that works: is you pick up or you start or finish with certain guns, and then I think as a general rule, they try to never have you finish with your pistols because there was no power factor. So like some folks were shooting 400 foot per second 90 grain projectiles. I mean, they're like barely moving.
Right.
And so the timer doesn't always pick those up. And then even a rifle, if it's like 130, 140 power factor, it's quiet. And it doesn't, and the actions on those are closed because you have to actually actuate the lever to get it to open. So the timer doesn't pick those up super well either. So a lot of times they like you to end on a pistol or a shotgun, I think for timer purposes. At least then. I haven't done it in quite a few years, but my memory is a little vague. They gifted me a cowboy hat, and it's sitting on the top of my shelf there. So I got, when I left, when you win a match, this was actually pretty cool. They give you like coins and tokens. So I think I've got these are just sitting there, but I got at least 2 of these from matches I won. And then I showed up and I didn't have a proper cowboy hat, and one of the dudes literally went into his car and he was like, "This is yours now. You're gonna wear that, son." And I was like, "All right." And so I kind of kitted it out, fitted it to my head, and anyway, I wore it.
They look like gambling chips,
They are. Those are poker chips. Yeah.
Yeah, poker chips. That's what I was trying to think of. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, that's pretty wild.
If I'm not mistaken, they're worth, like if you had 2 or 3 of them, you get a free entry. It's something like that, So if you win a couple matches, you come back and your next one's free. It was a cool system.
Yeah.
And I learned Cowboy, they're just as interested as what's for lunch as how are the stages. It's a true day at the range. I mean, I remember having my buddy's 70th birthday at the, after the Cowboy match. It's like, all right, now it's Bob's birthday party. And it's like, it's crazy, but I loved it. So
I'm trying to think of the there's a cowboy. Oh man, what is his name? He's a cowboy cook. I'm trying to think of his name. He's actually been on a bunch of shooting shows too.
I think I know who you're talking about, but like handles, I can't remember what he goes by.
Yeah, he and his wife, she's like 20 or 30 years younger than him. They've even started a podcast about it. And of course, the one time that I'm trying to scroll through YouTube real quick, it's not popping up. Any other time there'd be like 3 or 4 different episodes of his showing up. But that's interesting that the whole cowboy action thing and lunch and fires and that actually sounds like a wild experience.
No, it's cool. And I guess it's funny that you pulled the WRC picture because WRC, their logo it's like the whole thing started around a campfire. And I will put out this offer. If you show up at a WRC, like the big match, I will make sure you have gear, guns, everything. Just show up and have a good time. Like the people are the best people you ever meet in your life. Some of my best friends I have met through revolver shooting, and yeah, like I could tell you stories for days about how people go out of their way to help each other. So it's a great crowd if you ever get the opportunity. I would love to shoot a match with you, and whether it's ICORE, WRC, or something else, it's a really good group of people.
So it sounds like, I mean, once you switched from a semi-auto pistol to revolver, like you were all in, like you've been neck deep in this ever since.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so my personality type, you probably picked up on that. I either do or I don't. It's like I'm not a half-asser. I'm a full-asser. So like we're in
You're
it.
all in or you're all out. Yeah.
We're either in or we're out. And I shoot a bunch of different types of guns. Like actually earlier I was messing around with one of my open guns. My buddy's building me another custom open gun, like open actual 2011's 9 major guns.
Oh.
And I still enjoy shooting that stuff, but for whatever reason, I prefer shooting a revolver. Like 90% of the time, I just want to shoot revolver. And so, for example, this weekend we have an action, like an outlaw action steel match. And there'll be guys there with PCCs and open guns and like limited optics, and I'm just gonna go shoot my 8-shot revolver. And every now and then I still win stages with an 8-shot revolver, because if you go 1 for 1 and you don't waste time, it's falling steel. So it's not like you're double tapping targets. It's not like you need 29 rounds in a mag. So as long as you can use your brain, figure out where you need to reload, and you just go 1 for 1, there's no disadvantage to a revolver. So I don't know. I just really like them. I can't explain it to you in words, in one sentence. Maybe I should put some thought into how to do that better, but it's just more satisfying. I don't know.
So on an outlaw steel match, if you had to estimate what the average number of pieces of steel are on a stage, what would that number be?
I think for our local club, the guys try not to exceed like 15 to 20 maximum. So they try to make it where you're coming into a position and you're shooting like 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of steel, going into another position, shooting a similar amount. Maybe you're shooting a Texas Star plus a few poppers, or maybe a couple drop targets. The total round count at that match, it's really not a disadvantage, to shoot like single stack or revolver or like a 10-round gun. As long as you're hitting, if you're hitting the steel every time you shoot, it's not a disadvantage. Like if you go Ricky Bobby and you're and you're going 2-3 rounds per target, that's a different story. You probably want an open gun.
Well, those people are, they live by the motto, if you're not first, you're last.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know. Well, you told me that you did one with my buddy Mike Poggi a few years back. One of our buddies, Dave, his jersey is like Ricky Bobby from. It's hilarious. It's great. He's got the big was it the Cougar or whatever? It's like that is his jersey, and he's got all
There's
the
a Cougar in the car.
Yeah,
that's what I loved about Talladega at CMP one year when they held the awards at Talladega in the infield, because they had a NASCAR with a Cougar in it, which was pretty wild. Yeah, that is wild.
It's classy.
It absolutely is. Now I've totally lost my train of thought completely with the whole Ricky Bobby thing. We were talking steel.
Yeah, you were talking steel and asking if I shoot Revo or auto or both. But yeah, the action steel matches are a lot of fun. Honestly, part of the fun of it is they're outlaw. It's like, so the local club can do whatever the local club wants to do. So that's
right,
nice.
Local rules. Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason I had to ask you the whole, average pieces of steel was because, I mean, in my mind, when you say there's no disadvantage, I'm like, the math wasn't mathing, because I'm like, wait a minute, that's a lot of standing reloads, but it's not. So you're actually able to reload in between shooting positions.
Yeah. So if it was like PSA shootout or Mountains of Steel, where it's like the buzzer goes off and you just go to town, you'd get destroyed, because you're going to eat, a minimum of probably 7 to 8 seconds. Even if you go 1 for 1, you do blazing fast reloads, the person that's got the PCC or the big stick, they're just going to destroy you. So, yeah, if you can vary the reload, in like a 2-second movement between positions, game on.
How much time, like Jay's got some pretty fast reloads too. Like, how much time do you guys have to spend working reloads to get them to where if by chance you have minimal movement, or the match director, whoever the stage designer was, put 10 rounds, you can shoot 10 rounds from a position. How much time do you spend working on those reloads so that you're not losing, or you're losing the minimal amount of time?
My answer would be probably not enough.
Okay.
Because oh, that's a loaded question. So I did not used to spend a lot of time on that. And I guess, I don't know, like I told you before, I specifically chose my line of work not to make a lot of money, but to like do something that was interesting, valuable to society. I got into shooting for fun, right? Like at first I didn't really care if I won nationals or an area match. Like I just wanted to go out and have a good time. And so I didn't really care is the answer. I didn't care what my reload speed was. And then a couple of years back when I actually started winning some big events, I was like, maybe I should revisit that. And so for years, I did not spend a lot of time on my reloads, and it showed. I mean, it like if you just go back and look when the Bluetooth timers came out, I mean, you can get people's data. And so it wasn't until maybe 2 winters ago that I systematically spent a ton of time. And I'm talking like an hour of dry fire every day for like 2 to 3 months straight, because I had knee surgery. I had knee surgery on the 5th of November in 2024 and on the 6th of November in 2025. And so after I had that first one, I'm like, hey, how am I going to use this time productively? So I did gunsmithing. I worked on some like just loading ammo, getting my gear around. And then once I could stand up comfortably, I did a ton of reload practice. And actually, I did bring some props to kind of illustrate the difference, because
Okay.
I got my rig back here. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
I started with this style rig, which is super, super popular. And I actually really like these for a lot of reasons. So the moon clips go in, and when you pull them out, it just like slides and slips up. So this is a perfect example where this has kind of skinny posts. And so you can run 45s, 38s, 9mm. You can run any size you want. But you're grabbing all the way down here. You've got to get that thing loose.
Right.
So you're wasting time down here. You now put momentum in this direction, and then you have to correct the course to get it in the cylinder. I spent enough time doing the reload practice that I realized these, at least for me, these are the absolute fastest, which is like a magnet clip. And I got a bunch of snap caps and dud rounds here, but I got this off a prize table. So thank you, my buddy Caleb Higbee. Is the Speed Bees guy.
Okay.
And he donated this to Nationals a few years back, and I was walking the prize table, and I'm like, I've never tried a magnetic one. So I picked this up off the prize table. I bent the tabs so that they actually match the angle of my hand as that moon, like as I come down to reach the moon clip. I pulled these posts off, put like a big 18-inch wrench on them, and got it just right so that when I reach down, it is exactly the same angle that my hand touches. And then there's enough force there that they don't fall off. Like you can actually shake and rattle them, but they come off so easy. So when you come down, it's like it just barely takes any effort to get it off the post. And if you like take video of yourself and you're truly accountable for how long did it actually take shot to shot, and you can do a lot of that training in dry fire, but you're really not going to get the actual data unless you go live fire. So, and like, that's a whole nother topic, but in the dry fire setting, I kind of learned that I even went so far as, so there's 2 different ways to reload the gun. You've got, let me pull a sample gun out here.
Yes.
I got like a whole bunch of them. So this one is, where's my World Shoot gun's hiding around here somewhere. This was my backup gun for World Shoot. And there's generally 2 ways to reload. So when folks are
which firearm is that?
This one is a Smith & Wesson 929. So this is an 8-shot. This one's an 8-shot 9mm. It's got a titanium cylinder. These ones, I like to trim these barrels flush, or at least take the caps off of them and then recrown them. It's got a 6-inch barrel. These sights. So visual patience. This is an important one. I did a bunch of testing. These are custom Bowen Classic Arms rear sights that are .100 watt, wide, which is significantly narrower than your average rear sight. And then, actually, if you look closely, you might be able to tell that one I machined and blued. That's a 99 thou front, which means I was shooting for 100, and my tool chatter slop was a little too far on one side, so I was like, whatever, we'll make it 99 instead of 100. So I did a bunch of testing with these, and I settled on 100 in the front, 100 in the rear. That's the good stuff. And then I have, like this one. This one's got TK Custom hammer in it. Still has a lot of the factory internals. I just cleaned them up, modified them, polished ground, flat, smooth. And then an important thing for revolvers is chamfering. So this one is chamfered to the point where, like, if you're taking these rounds, they just slide right in. And one of the tests that I like to do, especially with the 6-shot guns, is I'll take fired cases, and if I'm chamfering a cylinder, I need to set it on there and like jiggle the cylinder, and it better go in. Because like you were saying, when you spend that time reloading, 1/10 of a second, 1/4 of a second, everything matters. And so when I did my testing, I went through and tried different belts. I even tried different types of ways to reload. So there's a lot of folks that when you're shooting, they will transition, eject, bring the gun down, grab a moon, and then load it with their what they call the weak hand reload, close the cylinder, and keep shooting. There's also folks that will slide, eject it, grab the moon clip with their strong hand, shove that in, reestablish their grip, keep shooting. And if you look at like the truly fastest reloads out there, most people are doing them strong hand. There are exceptions to that rule. I found, like in a match setting, which is what I truly care about, I would rather keep my grip established, and I hardly ever change my grip at all. And I can still reload. Like the fastest ones I have during a match are still like in the 1.4 something range, which is like, that's pretty quick, right? Like I was shooting an ICORE classifier match the other day, and I think my average reloads for my 6-shot 45 were like 1.7, 1.8, 1.9, somewhere in that range. And that is aiming at a pretty, decent target. And it's not like I'm just shamelessly pulling like I actually have to hit, 4-inch, 8-inch circle at an appreciable distance. So that's shot, reload to another reasonably hard shot. So I did a bunch of testing. I tried it strong hand, I tried it weak hand. I used like 2 or 3 different kinds of reloading posts. I tried them at different angles. And for me, I concluded that I liked weak hand only reloads with magnetic posts. And whether it's a Speed Bees or like Speedy Rack, which is the Eisens, like that's the style that I found to be the fastest for myself, personally. Long answer to a short question.
All right, now I have several questions here. That's why that's why I kept looking down. I was writing as you were talking. All right. First one is the front and the rear sights. You said 100 front and 100 rear. To me, the math says that that's a black, like there's no hole there. You're filling the rear hole with the front hole.
Yeah.
Or with the front blade. Yeah?
Pretty much. The only thing that's different is like your perspective changes. So if you
Right.
if you bring it up to your face, the sight looks super small. So it actually even matters how long your hands are, or like how long your arms are.
Right. Your
and
reach.
And how you grip the gun. Because if you're one of those folks that likes to keep it tight or push it really far away, that's a totally different sight presentation. So for mine, when I went through and did the testing, I took a 125 and a 100 rear, and I started there. And then I machined different sizes, different shape. I tried a bunch of stuff. And what's funny is I talked to one of my buddies, Rich Wolf, who's like one of the greatest revolver shooters there's ever been. And he told me that he did the same testing early in his career, and he concluded essentially the same information in terms of front sight. He started fat, made a bunch of them, and then I think he even went down to like 90 thousandths, and he said it's just too skinny. So his gun that he shot at World Shoot, I'd bet you it's probably got 100 wide front sight on it.
So how much, with your arm length and where your firearm is, where your pistol is held, how much space is in between the edges of the blade and the rear sight?
That's a good question. So like, I actually have some references in front of me. You've got like there's a couple thousands on each side for sure.
Okay.
In terms of what I'm physically looking at, so it's just enough. It's probably easily 10 or 15 thousandths, somewhere in that ballpark on each side. So it's just enough that if you're looking at, like, say you've got a really hard target. I mean, like, say it's an IPSC turtle at 50 yards and you're trying to get alphas, it's enough that you can see around the edge of that sight, even if it's subconsciously, and you can see there's the flat and there's your taper and your flat, and you can make sure that you're at the right elevation and at the right left to right.
Okay.
And that was truly the difference for me is, well, actually, like, I'm wearing glasses right now. I got my first pair of prescription glasses last year, and I noticed when I was shooting out at like the 50-yard line with my pistols, I was having a little bit more trouble. And so I went to the optometrist and I said, hey, I've never worn glasses. I'd like you to check my prescription. I want to get prescription shooting glasses. And once that happened, I realized, oh, my sight's getting just fuzzy enough that I can't quite keep them all in an IPSC A at 50. And so then I started going to, that's where like the whole sight journey started. And I'd already concluded a few years before that the 100 rear was amazing choice. But with my vision starting to get a little bit less crisp, I found I needed 100 in the front and 100 in the rear. And that was my, whether it's hit factor or time plus, that's my best performance. And I didn't do it based off what I thought looked good or felt good. I did it based off what the data said. Like, how many alphas am I hitting at 50 yards in, 6-second par time or something like that. So
right. I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the front sight post being too skinny means you're spending too much time moving the front around to get it more centered. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a huge part of it is probably just what your subconscious is processing, kind of like, as the sights return. I don't know. For me, that's like the magic sauce. That's the sweet spot is 100 in the front, 100 in the rear on a 6-inch barrel. Because that matters, right? If you have a 3-inch barrel or a 10-inch barrel, you're going to need different numbers to get the same relative presentation.
I feel like you're going to need a thinner blade on a shorter barrel and a fatter blade on a longer barrel.
Yeah. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, you know what? I have a pair of calipers and my 4-inch gun handy. Let's play a game.
Oh, I love numbers, so...
Yeah. My day job, I'm a scientist. I make isotopes for cancer therapy. So I'm a data-driven individual. Yeah, this gun's filthy, by the way. I haven't cleaned it. Yeah.
That just means it's loved.
It is very loved. This one, I've got a 125 on the front and a 125 in the rear. I think I settled on that for the same reason we just discussed. It gives me almost the same wiggle room.
Same 6-inch barrel, or what length barrel on that one?
That one's a 4-inch.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my first competition revolver. This is the Jerry Michalek 4-inch 625, which takes these monstrously obese, 230 grainers. I think I've got some parts over here somewhere. I don't know where I stashed all my gear. I just loaded up and demooned and remooned a whole bunch of ammo, but those 230 grain bullets, holy cow, man, they reload so fast. Because if you look at the cylinder profile, there's a lot of open space there and not a lot of other stuff.
Right.
If you look at this one's also pretty dirty. I shot this. If you look at like the 6-shot guns, if you look at the percentage of surface area, there's a lot more not whole, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're a lot more likely to run into something else that's going to slow you down.
A lot more room for error in there.
Yeah. So those 625s, those are generally speaking, like if you talk to the average revolver shooter that's been doing it a while, they'll tell you that's the fastest reloading gun on the market.
Oh, wow.
Because you got a big 230 grain pill times 6. That's a lot of weight. So it's coming in with some momentum. And it's like, you can practically just throw it at the gun and it goes in. It's actually kind of impressive how easy it is to do that.
Now, you said, I still have another question that I have to get to, but we'll get
Yeah.
there in a minute. You said you had knee surgery. Is that just the cleaning of the knee, or did you have to have did you have a tendon or a ligament that needed to be fixed, or?
So that's a funny story, which I think we're going to end up talking about World Shoot in a second. Um, I had horrible back pain. I guess it was like almost 3 years ago now, and oh, dude, it was bad. I was playing indoor soccer, and I was just jogging lightly in a straight line. And like for context, I ran a marathon a few years ago, and I think I ran like 1,360 miles that year. So,
Wow.
I was sprinting, I was doing long distance, like I was in pretty good running shape. And this would have been not too far after that. I was just lightly jogging in a straight line, and like I collapsed to the ground. I had like a shooting pain at my back, everything tightened up, and I couldn't sit up, I couldn't walk. It was terrible. And so it was to the point where I actually had to call somebody to help roll me out of bed the next day. I mean, it was truly awful. And so I
Wow.
decided, okay, I need to go see a doctor. I need to figure out what this is about. I go see a doctor, several doctors, and they thought it was because I had a knee problem that essentially was, just causing me issues. My gait was off. I had a
Right.
I had a loose piece of bone that was like floating around in my joint, and it was like about to come off, but it was still attached. So it was wearing a hole in my cartilage. It was causing a lot of pain, and just subconsciously you start to walk funny to try to avoid the pain.
Yeah.
They all, the ominous they, thought that was my problem. And I told the doctor, my surgeon specifically, I said, "Hey, I'm planning to go to World Shoot." I explained what that was, and he's actually a shooter, and so he said, "Oh, we better get you fixed up because the worst case scenario is that bone comes loose at the worst possible time, and then your joint is locked in whatever position you happen to be in when it happens, and then you can't move it until you get surgery, and then it's just much more difficult to deal with if it happens that way." So they scheduled the surgery to essentially peel that bone off in a controlled fashion, clean up all the cartilage. They got rid of arthritis on my joint, cleaned up some stuff on a tendon that was kind of inflamed from an old injury, and then they drilled a whole bunch of holes, and I guess that'd be my femur. And that gets it bleeding, and then they cleaned up the bone fragment, put it back on, and they put 4 screws in it to pin it in place and let it heal. And the second surgery, essentially 1 year and 1 day later, is to pull the screws out because the bone is now one again. And here's the funny thing. I had zero back issues after that knee surgery. I went through physical therapy. I started, becoming more active, getting back to my usual routine. I didn't have any back problems. I mean, like anything. I didn't have the slightest inclination that I was having a problem until the morning of World Shoot. And it got so bad by the end of that day that I was in bed for like 14 hours straight. And
Wow.
I spent hours like stretching, walking around, just doing anything I could to not seize up. And I haven't yet gone through and processed the third person video just because it's like, mentally I really don't want to look at that even now.
Right.
But I did process and upload the first person footage, and I mean, if you listen on one of it's like, ugh, ugh, it's like I'm struggling to breathe, and I'm like tightening my whole core so I can move around like a refrigerator on stilts, and it's
Jeez.
pretty bad, and I made it until the second day, second stage, which was the prone stage at World Shoot. Ironically, that's the only stage at World Shoot I won. But in Revolver, to be specific.
Right.
But I shot it pretty fast. I shot it clean. I got the high hit factor, and then my back gave out on me, and I'm like literally face down in the dirt. And if you look on the video, I mean, you can see my teammates, like Mike, Rich, Jay. They're literally picking me up off the dirt because I can't physically lift myself up. And you can
Dang.
imagine what's going through my mind during this whole experience. I had a surgery, planned it around not having problems, and then it was like, nope. Yeah,
Man.
that was the whole thing. It was actually to the point afterwards. How some of those on the bays they've got like the little covered areas. So it's four posts and a roof. I was like clutching one of the posts because I couldn't stand up on my own, and I'm like sitting there death gripping this, trying to talk to the safety. It was like, no, man, I'm good. I can keep going. Like I'm fine. I'm good. And the gentleman looked at me, and I can't remember what country he's from. He's like, "Sir, I don't think you understand. Take off your belt and follow me to the medical tent." And I was like, "Oh man, we're having that conversation." And so yeah, I wind up in the medical. They essentially told me like, "You're done. You can't shoot if you can't stand up." And I was like, "All right, that's fair." Um, so I get to a point where I'm like, okay, walking, I can get back up, I can move around. And I ended up having to take, I think it was like 2.5 days off. And then they got me back in the match. And then I had to do, it was like a whole ordeal. There was a local university, huge shout out to Samir Patel and Tom Castro, because those guys, they went out of their way to help me out. They found a physical therapy practice that was associated with a local university that had an Olympic training center. So like the stars aligned. We found like this incredible physical therapy practice, and they got me an appointment. Like they scheduled it for me, and they said, "Alex, be at this place at this time." I show up. I mean, dude, you can't make this stuff up. And like Samir is, I believe, an orthopedic surgeon, and so he was kind of talking to me. He's like, "Hey, what are you experiencing? How is it happening? Like, what's going on?" He was like, trying to think ahead. How can we get you
Right.
in the game? And so, I went to physical therapy. It was the most painful sports massage of my entire life. And
Oh,
I did that 2 days in a row for like an hour and a half to 2 hours. And I mean, this woman was doing things to my body that needed to happen for me to be able to stretch and move and walk. But holy cow, was it painful. And then, they popped me full of like anti-inflammatories and stuff like that to try to keep the swelling down. But it was bad. And even at the end of the week, I was not myself. I mean, I couldn't run. I couldn't even move normally. Uh, Richie, dude, I love Richie. He's like one of the greatest human beings I've ever met in my life. He he's following me on a stage at World Shoot, and he says, "Alex, why are you shooting like that?" And I looked at him and I said, "Rich, I can't turn that direction. I will fall over." And he laughed. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's right, because your back's all messed up." Because I was coming into a position essentially at like 180 degrees and then shooting to neutral. And it looked so weird, but I had to practice my stage the way I was going to shoot it. And he just looked at me like, "Are you crazy?" And I said, "Yeah, kind of, due to circumstances." But it was like a whole thing, Dave. It was it was a whole thing.
wow. Holy. So, okay, now, I've had a knee replacement, and I've had my several. I've had three meniscus tears, which have been. I've had both my ankles reconstructed due to basketball injuries. So I've had a few orthopedic surgeries,
Yeah.
and I've been a paramedic for 26 and a half years. So it seems to me that there's something else going on with the back, because if your knees were already fixed, it shouldn't be a back issue then if it was related to the knees. So what ended up being the issue?
That's an excellent question, sir. So you can imagine I'm sitting at my, rental house in South Africa, and I'm thinking, why did I have surgery for this? Why am I still having problems? So when I got back to the States, I went and saw all of the doctors again, and strangely enough, they looked at it, and said, "We never looked at your back."
Oh,
you know,
Lord.
they found a problem, like a bad problem that I needed to get that surgery anyway. Because,
Right.
I mean, the other alternative would have been, I'm moving to the left and then I fall to the ground and my leg is locked in some weird position. And
Right.
so I needed to get that fixed anyway, but we didn't fully follow up on what else could be going on. And so it wasn't until I got an MRI last fall, I think. I'm like getting the years mixed up even. I got an MRI after I got back, and they found all of my lumbar discs are all like in some phase of bulging, and
Mm-hmm.
one of them's compressing on a nerve root, and so that is what's causing the like I fall over, that sort of thing. And I have no control over it. The most delightfully unpleasant thing. I mean, I was walking to take the trash out. I'm talking like 3 pounds of trash in a bag, and I'm fine and nothing hurts. And then I go to lean at this slightly different angle, and all of a sudden I feel like I'm going to collapse in the driveway.
Yep.
And it just has to do with when and how that nerve is compressed. So yes, the
100%.
big thing there is, well, I probably need to lose a little bit of weight. I need to maintain my flexibility, need to make sure I keep the inflammation down. So I'm working on that. But the doctors don't really have a solution other than essentially stay flexible. And the thing that works the best is sports massage. So there's a guy in town who's really good. He trained as a physical therapy assistant and also a massage therapist. Literally, the only thing that has helped is going to see him routinely and then making sure I get good sleep, and I stretch on my own to stay loose and make sure that I'm not getting tight and my back doesn't get inflamed. So it's been challenging, but I'm working through it.
Well, when you said you couldn't walk, you couldn't sit, it hurt. The immediate thing that went through my mind was sciatic pain.
Yeah,
So
they asked me about that a lot, and it never radiated down my leg, which is they're like, "Are you sure you have not had shooting leg pain? Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So best anyone can tell, especially with the MRI data, is all of my lumbar discs are very like bulgy. None of them have like perforated yet, but some of them are pretty grumpy looking, and then on a nerve root. So strengthening my core, losing a little bit of weight, staying flexible, kind of just building up the strength of the muscles around it so that those areas aren't being worked as hard. That's probably the answer. I mean, it sounds silly, but they told me that I had to taper back on my exercise and sports and all that, and I actually think that's what made it worse, because I just had knee surgery on the load bearing joint, and
right.
so they're like, don't run, don't play soccer, don't do this, don't do that. And so I did my shooting stuff, and I was still very active, but I used to exercise a lot more. I went from running almost 1,400 miles in a year to 0 miles in a year. That was a pretty big change.
Yeah, that's a massive. Yeah.
So anyway,
Wow.
I'm slowly ramping back up to like playing soccer, doing more sports. I'll probably get back into some weightlifting, but anyway, lesson learned.
Do
The human
they?
body is don't take it for granted.
Yeah. Do they know what caused your lumbar to be so? I don't want to say injured, but damaged, I guess.
One of the physical therapists did actually think a good chunk of it was, you take 8 or 10 moon clips hanging off your belt at a weird angle. It puts a small but constant strain. And then you take a 3 or 4 pound gun, put it on one hip. Now you've got weight going this way and weight going this way on your belt. And so some people are like, BS, there's no way. But I will tell you, when I started taking all my moon clips off, holstering or bagging my gun, either at the unload show clear or at the safe table immediately afterward, when I started doing that, I had significantly less issues with my back. So there might be something to that. Just being kind to it. I mean, I'm a match director. I can't tell you, when I was younger and less intelligent, I would carry, 2 18x24 steel challenge plates, one in each hand. You're not going to see me do that anymore. I'm going to pick one up. I'm going to use good form, and I'm going to make sure that I set it down carefully. All it
Right.
takes is picking one up at a weird angle, and you pull a muscle in your back or do something stupid that takes you out of commission. So some of it may also be the sheer number of hours that I was training, because I was training like crazy leading up to World Shoot. And the weird thing is I didn't have any pain. Like, it didn't hurt. It didn't cause me trouble. I mean, in my brain, some of the guys that had been to World Shoot, 5, 10, 15 years ago, they told me to prepare for a lot of very acrobatic physical stuff, jumping into low ports and, just all kinds of things that they've done in the past. So I was doing like pretty physical stuff. And, my training ritual was pretty crazy at the end, and I had no pain doing any of that. Didn't cause me any trouble. And we do think that the long flight over, sitting in a car, sitting on a bus, going here and there,
Compression.
I was stationary and I wasn't moving, I wasn't stretching, wasn't sleeping really well, and I think that all just it's like a perfect storm of all the bad stuff just boom hit me like a stack of bricks.
I had an old captain in the fire department who had been a paramedic forever. And he made the comment one day. He said back injuries in the fire department are not a one-time problem. Yeah. He said it's a repetitive injury that happens over years, and then one day you come into work, you go to grab a bag that isn't very heavy, wouldn't normally cause an issue, and all of a sudden, bam, you've got a back injury. He said it wasn't because you reached over and picked up that bag. It was the hundreds or thousands of times you had done it before, and then that day your back finally said enough is enough. So I actually believe that, yes, it could be the way people wear belts. They have uneven weight distribution. Yeah. So even like when you said 2 18 by 24 steel targets, in my mind, I'm like, well, if they're balanced and you can handle it, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But, if you're carrying it with one hand, you are asking for issues because your body is so lopsided,
Exactly. Now, when I carry them around, I drive the tractor right next to it. And
there you go.
I pick it up and I move it like 2 feet, and then I carefully set it down on the steel trailer.
Work smarter, not harder. Yep.
Man.
100%. Okay. The other question I had was, and this actually caused a little controversy on social media.
Oh.
But I'm going to ask you. You said 1.7 to 1.8 reloads. Now, yeah. That's actually shot to shot, correct?
Yeah. And
okay.
Actually, here I can pull up the data and tell you exactly how far the targets were and what my hits were if you want.
Well, here's the technical question, Mr. Scientist.
Yeah.
Mr. Sheldon Cooper. That's not your whole reloading time. How much of that time do you suspect is you being done with the reload and then you're reacquiring your weak hand grip and aim back on target?
Oh, that question? I studied that. Yes.
That question.
Yeah. No, I know where you're going now. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Okay.
So when
just don't hurt your back.
Yeah. When I mentioned I tested the equipment. I tested everything. So I even tested different moon clips. Like these ones are blued steel, and they're a little bit more jiggly. These ones are thicker. They're 40 thou instead of 35 thou. They're made of different material. They have different tolerances. I tested everything. Wow. And here's the trade-off, or I guess here's what you have to decide. If you truly want to be super fast reloading a revolver, what are you going to do more consistently? Are you going to more consistently, and I guess I'll pick up a gun and demonstrate, because like if you're shooting the weak hand only method, I keep this hand planted. So right. When I'm shooting, and that's empty, I'm shooting, I'm very quickly popping that cylinder open. By the time the thing is here, I'm ejecting a moon clip. I'm right. letting go of that, coming down to grab something. I'm putting that in. When I come up, I'm now closing the cylinder, and by the time I get to about right here, I'm not even fully gripped. And the way I set my guns up, I never dry fire them, just for a few reasons. So I'm going to put some duds in here. But like when I'm doing that real fast, I'm probably already this far into the trigger pull by the time I grip that gun. And you can see the cylinder's even turning. I'm probably right about there. And that cylinder just locked up, and then I pull the trigger. So that's a lot. Like that's a lot of stuff happening. I'm going, long shot, bam. So right there, you've got to let off the trigger. You got to get it out of the finger guard, because if you do this, that's a DQ.
Right.
So you have to let go of the trigger.
Yep.
Move your hand, open the cylinder,
yep.
eject down, put in a new one, close the cylinder, reestablish your grip and your trigger control all at the same time. So what you're gonna, if you do the left hand reload, it's like, am I more comfortable with these motions, If you do the other technique, you're saying, I just pulled the trigger, trigger's down. I now need to, like, that gun, I'm letting off the trigger and my hand's leaving that gun. So
Right.
you're transferring it into this hand using essentially these combination of parts and pieces to eject the round. And then you have to get on your belt, throw a moon clip in there. You now have to completely reestablish your grip. Close the cylinder with the other hand, then reestablish here. Some people feel like there's an advantage because you're going bang, 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 bang. This is a pretty quick move, and you can move your hand down while you're ejecting.
Right.
You can't do that if you're doing the weak hand reload where it comes down, you eject, then you get to go grab your new one. So you have to decide, or not decide, take video, get the data, do it yourself. What is faster for you? Are you faster at reestablishing your grip, or are you faster at getting your hand down to your belt to get that round? Those are the things you're exchanging. Because either way, one of your hands needs to leave the gun to go get a moon clip, one of your hands needs to do this, and one of your hands needs to close it, and then you need to get back on target. So you're trading off grip reestablishment for waiting to get your clip. And for me, I bring the gun down just enough so that it kind of hides that motion a little bit, and it doesn't seem like I'm never waiting on it. Usually, by the time, like if I'm really cooking with gas, I'm gonna grab that thing, and I've got it, as soon as I let go, my gun's already up, my cylinder's closed, and by the time I'm about right there, the gun's going off. If it's a close target. So like even a far target, I mean, probably a 2.5 second reload is fair game, like on a pretty far target. How well does that answer your question?
Well, I'm going to add a little bit more now. Now that you've demonstrated, I can explain it a little bit more too.
Yeah.
I would consider your reload being done the moment the cylinder is closed. So from there, how much time do you think it takes to get from cylinder closed to shot on target, say a 15-yard target?
15-yard target, you're talking like probably a 20-25 split. So something like 15.15 to 0.2 seconds, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Okay, so on a 1.7 to a 1.8, we're talking a 1.6 to a 1.65 reload?
Yeah, I mean, and again, it depends on how people reload, because like some folks...
Well, I'm saying for you, just you.
Ugh, that's a hard question, right?
I'm splitting hairs is what I'm doing, but I'm breaking the reload down into, because I look at it from a semi-auto standpoint. The moment my magazine clicks into place, if I already have a round in the chamber, then my reload is done. Now, the rest of the time is reestablishing my grip, getting sights on target, and pulling the trigger. You see what I'm saying?
I would say you're probably talking, like depending on the shooter, you're probably talking a minimum of like 0.1 to 0.15 seconds. And then here's where it gets more complicated. Because like, you know, say you load, and say I'm shooting like a 40-yard target. I'm going to have that thing closed, and I'm going to have that gun like super stable, right? So your sights are going to be wobbling a lot less if you're pulling the trigger on that guy. So that's
Right.
where on a really long target, even a fast reload could be like 3 seconds, shot to shot, because you've now got to engage a much more difficult target. Whereas, like I think the fastest ones I've ever done in a match are like in the 1.4s, but that's at a super close target, like a 3.5, something like that yard target. So you're like, bam, you're right there, and you almost don't even need to look down the sights as long as you know where they are, if you track what I'm saying.
Yes. This is where me being a technical guy and again, I know I'm splitting hairs.
Yeah.
I totally get that. And where I'm going, maybe it doesn't matter, maybe it does. But I guess what I'm trying to do is come up with the true reloading time. Because a 3-yard target, let's say every one of your reloads, Alex, is 1.4.
Yeah.
At a 3-yard target at 1.45, you're engaging that target. At a 15-yard target, now it's a 1.7. At a 40-yard target, it's a 2.0. But your reload is still 1.4. That additional time is all sight picture, sight alignment type stuff.
So I'd say that's exactly a way to look at it because I did a tenure as the ICORE stats guy, and one of the things I studied to make sure that like the par times and like is this truly a good top score? Should it be better? I studied what are and I think it's safe to say for iron sight revolver shooting, I'm a reference shooter. Like if I'm warmed up and I'm shooting well, like that's a good reference time. I went and plotted my splits and my reload times at like 5, 10, 15, 25, 30, 35 yards. And so I have a very good idea of how those slow down. And you're definitely on the money. I mean, El Prez 17 yards? Do you happen to remember?
Oh boy. Eesh. I'll find out.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna look that, but I know when I was studying that, if you get a reload, like if you get that reload off and you're going alpha to alpha, low twos is very good to ensure an alpha hit. Now, if you want to throw a Charlie at it, that's a different story, or a Delta.
10.
It's 10.
Yeah, the classic El Presidente drill is traditionally shot from 10 yards.
Maybe I was shooting an ICORE version. I think
Maybe
ICORE
so.
might be further out then.
Okay.
No, you're right. 12 rounds shooting to 10 yards. Let me
Yeah.
look this up. Um, I might be thinking, yeah, because it's definitely not 10 yards is the one I'm thinking of. Classifiers. Not Jeff Selprez. Here we go. Classifier 6 in the ICORE catalog. What do they have here? Oh, they do it just slightly more. 12 yards,
12
36.
yards. Okay.
But I remember like to guarantee alpha hits, and that's not super far away, but that's 12 yards. To guarantee alpha hits, I was considering low 2 seconds to be very good. Now, you know, if you get your best guys on their best day, they're probably, you know, they could do probably better than that. But the amount of time in the shot to shot reload, it gets a lot bigger as that distance opens up. So like
Right.
a lot of folks that do like a 6 reload 6 or an 8 reload 8, they're shooting a steel target at 7 yards, or they're shooting a paper target at 3 yards. They're just going bop 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 reload bop 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 bop,
Right.
and that's not what we're doing in a match. Like you're not doing that at USPSA nationals. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%. But that's where I try to break down where we had that conversation because someone said, oh, my reload was this. And I'm like, well, but everybody likes to break stuff down incrementally, step by step.
Yeah.
What's my draw? What's my, but so like your draw is really your draw to first shot. And then
Right.
that depends also on the distance to the target. A 3 yard target, I mean, all you need to do is point the barrel. You know what I mean? Like 3 yards before you extend your hands out, you can have a shot on target.
Yeah.
But on a 15-yard target, okay, now you're going to draw, you're going to put your sights on the target, you're going to make sure you're going to have the visual patience to make sure the dot's where it needs to be. But what is in a reload? I'm like, no, it's not a, if someone says I have a 1 second reload, to me, they probably have a 0.7 or a 0.8 because, or maybe a 0.9, depending on the distance to the target. But it's actually faster than that because some of that time is reacquiring grip and sights.
100%. Yeah, I'm trying to find. Yeah, this is the classifier I was thinking of. This one is you fire 6 shots, you go to a new position and fire 4 shots, go to a new position, fire 6 shots, go to a new position, fire 4 shots. And I was moving to a new position and engaging a different target in 199, 188, and 179.
Okay.
So that's like moving, and I wasn't moving very far. Yeah, this one's like you're just taking a couple steps. But that's like with those big 6-shot 45s. I mean, I was stuffing a reload, moving into a new position, going around a barricade, and shooting a target in 179, which is that you're doing a lot. Like you said, you're doing a lot more than reloading the gun
Yes.
in that time frame. And it's actually funny because I'm looking at the time chart here. The largest distance I had to travel, that was the one that was 199. And then I ripped 4 shots, got to a new position in 188, ripped 6 shots, new position in 179 and rip 4 shots. So, yeah, I mean, truly the reload with that gun, I've never really practiced it. Although you're segueing into a good topic. At our biggest ICORE match of the year, my buddy Craig is the match director. He got an insurance, like a half court shot policy. If you break any of the reload records, there's currently $12,000 in cash on the table.
Whoa.
So I will be practicing.
Whoa, really?
He's doing
That's
it's the 6-shot reload 6-shot. I think he's doing 8 shots, just like bring a target. How fast can you rip 8 shots? And then he's doing 2 shots each on 4 separate targets. Those are the side match, and I think it's even if you just break one of the records, you still get like several $1,000s for just breaking one of them. So I will be
wow.
practicing with my 625 because it's got those big fat holes, and I'm gonna load up some loads that are like crimped to death, and like we're gonna figure it out.
You're going to have that over tightened belt mark across the projectile.
Well, and what's funny is like I'm pretty okay at reloading compared to the like most folks, but Jay is faster, Mike is faster. I mean, Richie's probably faster. Reloading is never something I put a lot of effort into until last winter, 2 winters ago, I guess. So I mean, if you really want to see a speed demon, you should see Mike when he's fully warmed up and he's just letting it rip. Dude, he's wild. And then Jay Slater is right up there now. I mean,
Right.
watching, I don't know, part of it is like these guys are all my buddies, and I just love watching them shoot because we all have different skill sets. Jay, we all came up with like cute little nicknames for each other, and we like he's the master of scurry. He somehow gets to that position so fast. He shot his moon clip 30 feet that way because he hit it like instantly, and then he's already firing again. And you're like, how the heck did he get over there? He's really good on his feet, super, super fast reloads. And if you've ever seen him do it, the Ruger lets you reload in a different way than a Smith & Wesson. And if you're willing to put in the time, it is a little faster. So Jay, he's like a machine with that stuff. And then Mike is like king of the strong hand reload. He's like our master of speed. Mike is not the most accurate in the group, but oh boy, is he the fastest. And he's just plain fun to watch. Like, a few years ago at Nationals, everyone in the Super Squad shot, and I think for some reason Mike went after me. I went up and I hit the high hit factor, and then I'm looking over and, Poggy's got kind of that look in his eyes, and he's like, I'm going to do something. And he goes and blows a 20-something% margin on me. Like, everybody else
Whoa.
is 20% and below. And, I mean, he just went, dude, he was hooking up. He was flying. He went clean on all the steel. He went out like no shame into all these hardcover. Didn't hit a single penalty target. He got great hits. And I was like, that was fun to watch. I kind of wish I got that on video. I think Shooting USA did though, so I should look that up. But like he's our speed demon. And then if I think about Rich on the World Shoot team specifically, he's like the master of movement. He shoots really fast when he needs to. He shoots really accurately when he needs to. But the way he executes in a field course is unbelievable. So we all have a different style, right? So that's why I love this game, because I love watching my friends just execute and do their thing in their own ways. I don't know, it's a lot of fun.
That is what's so interesting about the shooting sports is everybody's shooting the same game, but everybody's doing it different. There's something different about the way everybody does it.
I mean, that's like USPSA in a nutshell, right? Freestyle shooting,
Yep.
Here's your assignment, figure it out. So
Yes, that's why Virginia Count should go away.
that's an interesting take. Well, it's funny you say that because I mentioned I did time as the stats guy. Probably my best and greatest skill, if you isolate it from all of them, is ICORE classifier shooting or your traditional standards, field standards type shooting where it's draw your gun and fire this, reload, shoot this weak hand, move to this position. I mean, there's probably like maybe a handful of people that are as good in terms of like shoot, do a thing, move to this box, shoot and do a thing. But where I need to work is the stuff that like all the other guys are really good at, which is getting through that field course really fast. So it's funny. I like some of that stuff because I'm good at it. If it went away, I think my overall rank in the match might go down a little bit. But it is what it is.
Do you see that?
Yeah, you've got an AP1, an IPSC, and a
Why?
USPSA.
Why is your? Did I download the wrong? All right, hold on a second. I gotta
Tyler
go back. I
Johnson.
don't. Yeah,
I
but
just changed
that's
names like that.
yeah. Let me hold on a second. There's. I downloaded the correct background for that, so I don't know what the problem is. So I'm going to fix that real quick while we're talking.
Yeah, go for it.
But I had to find out where I was at here. So my question is, and I'll put that back up on the screen here in just a moment, but for someone who shoots the different disciplines, well, USPSA, ICORE, and IPSC, IPSC, they're all using a different target.
They sure are.
Yeah. So
Yep.
how does that affect your strategy for each discipline?
That is a really good question. And I guess if we were to take a tour around my house, well, have you had Jay Slater on your podcast before?
I have. Yep.
Have you seen his dry fire targets, the Generico, the big playing cards?
Yes.
So one of the ways that I have like a couple approaches to that, because like you mentioned, you don't want to switch between, you don't want to show up on a match one day and then have to like completely recalibrate the next day if you're shooting like USPSA, then ICORE, then something else. So in my house, I have Jay's targets like all over the place. And those are all of my IPSC targets. And then I've got a bunch of ICORE cardboards. And then I also have a bunch of USPSA cardboards. And so I just practice, whether it's, sight alignment, just visual comfort level, whether it's at the house or at the range, I cycle through those targets regularly. And what I have found very helpful, if you're shooting ICORE or, Bianchi, GSSF, whatever, anything that uses that tombstone shape, the X-ring is dead center of the target. So if you're far enough away that you can't actually see the perforations, you can't tell where the circles are, you need to know subconsciously when you're looking at that target, you need to know what the top of that target needs to look like if your sights are dead center on the X-ring. And if you do it enough times, you just have to keep thinking it's in the middle of the target. And as long as you know where the middle of the target is, I mean, you can kind of treat it like, here's my cell phone. As long as you're staring at the center of it, doesn't matter. Pull the trigger. If the left or right's good and you're somewhere in that neighborhood, pull the trigger. And then for IPSC, it's also very similar, but that A zone looks a lot different. So what I do for those targets is the vertical sight alignment. I zero mine so that 50 yards on an iron sight 6-inch gun at 50 yards, my dot is where it impacts. And that means it's going to be at about 10 to 11 yards. It's the same. It's going to be about an inch higher mid-flight, and then it's going to come back. And so when I line up on an IPSC target, I find the crease where it goes to a corner.
The shoulder, yeah.
Yeah, that inflection point, because you might be looking at a 35, 40, 50-yard target. You just want to make sure that the top of your sights, black rear, black front, you want that kind of lined up right there. And if you look at it and it's like, oh, I can't see the shoulder or it's way too tall, you're too high or too low. And so that's how I handle the IPSC targets. USPSA, I don't know, man. They're goofy because the A zone's offset. It's true, right?
Yeah.
But you can use the same trick because it's got that curved shoulder. There's I forget what the angle is on it. It might be a clean 45 or not, but it's flat. There's an angle, and then there's the flat. If you're lined up just shy of that flat, kind of the same as the IPSC target presentation, you're in the hunt. And generally, if I'm shooting like really fast, I would tend to pull it slightly low, if anything. And the way all my guns are zeroed, I do that so that, I can just like look at a target at 15, 20, 35, 50 yards, and I just know exactly. I don't have to see the target. I don't have to see the perf. I don't even have to see if there's a no-shoot or a hard cover, as long as I know where my reference is above my sight plane.